Welcome to Active Tutorial 2, the pen. The goal of this session is to basically give you an overview of how your pen interacts with the board. Obviously you've already been working with that to a degree, but we want to make sure you know about all the functions. In addition to talking about how the pen works with the board when you're standing at the board, it's also important to talk about Active Studio from the perspective of if you're at home working on stuff. If you're building a flip chart at home, how does what you do with the pen at school translate to what you're doing on your laptop? So those are some things that we're going to talk about. Number one, what you have to remember is that your Activpen controls the computer as you write or draw on the active board. It basically is your mouse. Just as an example, if I want to go to Firefox, if I take my pen and click on Firefox, it'll take me there. If I want to go back to Inspire, I can click on that and it will take me back there. If I want to look at my iTunes library, I can click on it. All of these things can be done from the board. You do not need to be in Active Inspire up here. You do not need to be in this program for the pen to work. You can take attendance in an infinite campus using your pen. Now if you're standing at your active board, you might want to know how to move things around on the active board. Remember, the pen is your mouse. You don't need to stand at your computer. If you take your pen and you hold it over an object, like this picture for instance, or any of these text boxes, you can actually click and you'll push the pen nib into the board just a little bit. And again, what you'll be doing is you'll be pushing the pen nib into the board and you'll be holding it there, so you won't be letting the pen off of the board. You'll be pushing it in, and when you do that, you can move the pen around. You can also do that with text boxes. For example, all of these different bullet points are actually different text boxes. So for example, we have not talked about the hover feature yet. So if I push the pen nib to the board and hold it, or I keep my finger on the mouse button, I can actually move this object up, and I can move this one down, and I can rearrange these different objects here based on whatever order I want to move them to. I can also very quickly select the pen tool, change the color, and I can check off this box to say that we have completed it. So that's a brief overview of moving different objects. Now the hover tool, the board actually senses that the pen is there. So if you hover over the board, and I would say hover by like a millimeter away from the board or so, and the hover feature allows you to move your cursor to see where it's located without actually writing on the board or clicking on anything. So that is a nice tool. For example, let's say these objects, I want to change the position on the page. What I can do is I can hover, let's say I can hover the cursor up here, and then if I push the pen nib to the board, I can actually select multiple objects. This is another little trick. I can select them all together. I can then move them around as a group. Now they're not locked or they're not grouped. I can still move them all separately, but what I've done is I just allowed me to do something quick on the board if I wanted to grab several objects and move them together. If I click out of there, it deselects them, and then I can move these things. So for example, I'm not talking about hover anymore. I can actually delete that. I can move these two things back together and move them together and maybe put them at the top of the page. Okay. The next two I won't go into very much depth because we'll be covering them again in other tutorials, but the single click opens an edit toolbar menu, and we'll briefly cover that, and then also talk about the control click or the orange button or the barrel button, however you want to refer to it. So if you have an object like a picture on the page, like this one right here, and I click on it, you can see that these different edit bubbles come up around, and I also have various things here. For instance, I can move the picture, I can rotate the picture, I can also make it more or less translucent. So basically, when you click on an object, it brings up these different edit menus. It's also very easy to increase the object size. And if you hover over these different icons up here, you will get a pretty good idea of what they are. One that is often kind of tricky to find is the object edit menu. And when you click on that, you get more options here, which kind of give you just about everything that you could do with this object. Remember, right now we're focusing on the basic, but just about anything you want to do with the board, you can. The last thing that I am going to talk about with the pen is the barrel button, located right here. Now, one of the tricks with the barrel button is that if you hover the pen over the board, so do not push the pen nib, this thing right here, onto the board, but hover it, and you click the barrel button, you will get different options that will pop up. Now on your keyboard, this is a little bit of a trick, but you want to hit the control click. So if I control click on this picture, I get the menu that you see here. If I go over to this picture and I hit control click, I can bring up the same menu. Now if I were standing at the board, I would actually want to hover the pen over this picture and push the barrel button, and I would get this. There's a saying that basically says, when in doubt, right click, or barrel button click, or control click. And then you can see that you get this menu with lots of different shortcuts. For example, if you want to lock an image, this is where you would lock it. If you want to reorder it, like bring it to the front, send it to the back, you can do that. Those are functions that you might be familiar with from Microsoft Office. If you do want to do something simple like copy it, you can do that. Control click again, paste, and now you have a double image of a copy that you just created. And I did that not by doing anything that I would do in Active Inspire or on the Promethean board. I'm doing something that you can do in just about any program, from Microsoft Word to PowerPoint, other things like that, that you can copy, paste, and cut from that control click. And again, that's accessed through hovering and pushing the barrel button. So that is a quick overview of the different aspects of the Activpen.